Okay, 4th of July edition.
I wore my sweater.
You did. You look great.
I wore the American flag sweater.
Yeah, good job.
I am proud to be an American.
Yeah,
Everybody.
you are.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that.
Yeah,
it's
we are.
our first story out of the
I'm
gate.
one of the only ones.
Well, it's not true. There's a lot of proud to be Americans, but there's some very significant differences in ways certain Americans look at being an American. And are you proud to be an American? And that's the first story out of the gate that we're going to talk about.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to talk about that.
Well, it's our 4th of July edition.
It is our 4th of July edition. So we're going to go. Gallup did the study.
Okay.
So we'll get into that. Then, obviously, everybody is talking about the big, beautiful bill that's going to make its way through the House now that it's through the Senate. You may well be watching this and it will be through the House. They're trying to get this thing done by July 4th. And there's a very specific reason for that. And I want to talk about why they're in such a rush to get this thing done. And we'll talk about different representations and how it plays a role. Some interesting stuff coming from Alaska on this that we could learn from in New Mexico, which we'll do. And we're going to discuss a couple other things as well. One of them is that when the president of the United States, whoever that is, comes to you and you're a member of Congress and says, I've got to have your vote. Now, oftentimes, presidents have a lot of sway over some of their members. They're of the same party. Well, this president, President Trump, has more than any president likely in our lifetimes with this. So that's why it's likely going to pass, and we're going to talk about why he's got so much sway in that respect. We're also going to talk about the Leah Thomas situation, which has been resolved, and Penn has stood up and made a comment about that. And then we're going to have a movie recommendation, which you and I are going to very, very much recommend.
Oh, yeah. And it's, going into the 4th of July, a lot of times people like to go see a movie during a holiday weekend.
Yeah, it's a good one.
We've got one for you.
Oh, yeah.
And it's solid.
It's very solid. It is a great movie.
Probably one of the best movies I've seen since Boys on the Boat.
Wow.
Or Boys in the Boat or whatever that one was.
Boys in the Hood, yeah.
No,
Boys in the Boat.
Boys in the Boat.
The rowing movie, University of Washington.
Yes, that one.
Not a big fan of University of Washington, as you can tell by my head.
Yes.
My hat.
Your hat, yes.
The Washington State University, which
you have a lot going on today. You have a lot of...
Yeah, I know. I just threw this on.
I
just read. I just wanted to go red. I wanted to be...
Oh, red? Do I need to get you a little American flag shirt?
I could have used one. I don't have one.
You could have done your Cowboy Star t-shirt.
It's a little snug now. I'm going to be honest with you. You gotta lose a little bit. Gotta lose a couple lbs.
No, you're in good shape, guy.
Guy, this is a little tight.
I think you need to slow down on the chest press. That to me is what you need to do.
All right, let's move on to the comments.
All right,
let's move on to the comments.
Mark gets very uncomfortable whenever I talk about his lifting and what he should lift or not lift. Yeah. He's like, "Would you please stop talking to me about this?" But I feel like I have a good idea.
No, everybody's clicking off. Let's go.
Okay. All right, so our comments. Tommy Guns comes in hot again. You had a lot again by your game camera.
Yeah, they like that, huh?
Yeah, they liked it.
Okay.
Nice bull elk in game camera was trying to figure out what he was eating. Looked like a cow patty.
Yeah, I don't think it was a cow patty. I don't know. There's not a whole lot there where he was, so I don't really always know. I've occasionally put out little salt licks for the deer during the winter, but I don't really know what's going on other than that.
This is a new location for you, right, on the game cam? So
that one was, yeah.
So who knows? Maybe there's something there that we don't know about.
Well, there isn't. So I did go back in the archives because the crowd loves it, right?
Oh gosh.
So I wanted to show you this.
It's supposed to be Sunday game day.
I know,
this
but
is not a Sunday show.
It's a special edition. It's July 4th. Let's go to it. This is from May, early May, and in early May we had some video of. I just wonder, did Ava not get? Ava, did you not get my? You don't see the pictures?
You can't throw things on me like this.
No, they're in the rundown.
It's not in the rundown.
It's not right after the first comment.
Okay.
All right. We're good. That's fine. No, sorry, kiddo. I didn't really tell you that. So we got a couple little video clips here I want to show you. This is from early May. We got 3 feet of snow at the top of Agrafria Peak. These are 3 bears. A mom and her 3, it's actually 4 bears. You can't see them all here, but it's a mom and her 3 yearlings, it looks like. She has since kicked them out, by the way.
Yeah.
The cams see them, and they're all separated out now. And so you can see them all playing around in the snow as they're checking it out.
The mom doesn't move very much in that video.
No, she just kind of stood there. Yeah, we've got some better ones of that. I will show more of those.
Whoa.
And then we have some turkeys. This was from the same exact time frame. We got some turkeys who came in, and there were a ton of these guys playing around, and they were, it looks like eating something there on the ground. So
yeah, you should have waited and held that one for our Thanksgiving special, not our 4th of July one.
I'll get some more turkey. Don't worry. I'll get some more turkey. So there you go. So more game camera action. I'll have more coming up for you on Sunday.
We did that just for you there.
There you go, buddy.
Okay. All right. L. Davis Rock said, love the show. The idea about the Sunday animals. So funny. Well, there you go. There's another one for you. I learned so much about Iran and appreciated the in-depth info on the men behind the recent happenings in Iran. Happy Ava is home safe. What an amazing experience she'll never forget, and proud of her for doing something out of her comfort zone for 5 weeks. Prayers she'll completely be
Healed. Hopefully
soon of the malaria. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, if I may respond to
Yes.
that, malaria. The really interesting thing about malaria is it's a parasite, so it's in your body for the rest of your life.
Okay.
And it can come back at any time.
Okay. Congratulations.
That's kind of cool. Congratulations.
Future sick days for me.
Okay.
Locked in.
Oh, no.
Guess what?
35,
You're
I'll be
going
like,
to you're going to college,
I
kid.
knew this,
Nobody
like,
wants to hear it. It's the
there's no
world's
sick
smallest
days.
violin.
When I have
Sorry.
like a real job, I'd be like, I can't come in.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, no.
Mhm.
This is all we heard is we can't unload the dishwasher because we got malaria.
We got
That is what I
malaria.
said. I did say that because I was very weak at the time.
Okay, yeah. Okay, moving on. John Beverly, great episode as usual. Glad Ava's home safely. Praying for her complete recovery from malaria.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. And then Patrick Potter says, great show, Ronchetti. Welcome home, Ava. Hope you get past the malaria. Great producing, Ella. Both the girls getting a shout out. Ella would appreciate that. And let's pray that Mamdani is not the new way of the Democratic Party. And another yes for Sunday game day. They'll be safe and we'll see you Wednesday. Patrick put a lot in that comment.
Yeah, I like it,
He
Patrick.
hit a lot of the
He's
points for
solid.
us.
He does a great job.
He's getting some points in there. Anyway, if you guys would like to send in the comments, you can write them in on our YouTube channel directly. Please like and subscribe before you make a comment, because otherwise they kind of don't come up for us. So make sure that you like and subscribe, and then you can make a comment, and those come to us. Or you can just send us an email at info@nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com. If you're listening to us on the radio, we are on YouTube. So jump over to YouTube if you actually want to see the video portion of our show, and like and subscribe to our channel. Okay, thanks, you guys. Let's dive kind of in, because since it is the 4th of July,
Right.
we want to talk about. I mean, I wish we could get some music, but we probably would get copyright infringed if we start playing something. But a new polling shows that not everybody is as proud to be an American as I am.
Well, that's very true. You are very proud to be an American. You're the walking embodiment of Lee Greenwood. There's no doubt. And it's interesting because Gallup came out with a poll. So I started seeing these numbers and I was fascinated by them because there are significant differences between the political parties and how they view being proud to be an American. So let's go to the basic numbers right now, okay? And here they are. So right now, 92% of Republicans are proud to be Americans, okay? And if you look at where the Democrats are, 36% of Democrats are proud to be Americans, and roughly just over half of independents are proud to be Americans. Now, what's interesting is if you look at the line, especially, let's just start with the Republican line, okay? That line is pretty steady. It doesn't matter. Like you can see the years on the bottom, right? So we go back to 2001, right? Okay, so that's George W. Bush, 9/11. You end up with basically 100% of Republicans right after 9/11 are proud to be Americans. And that number stays right around 90%. I mean, that, 90, 92, 94, right in there. Republicans in general are proud to be Americans. It does not matter who the president is, for the most part. Republicans don't really care.
I mean, honestly, the biggest drop I'm watching on this came between 21 and 24.
Put it back up, Ava.
If you look at that, that's the biggest drop it got, and it was still at about 87%.
Yeah.
So that's really the biggest drop. So.
Right. So the consistency is significant. Now, Democrats going back to 2001, again, coming out of 9/11, Democrats as well, proud to be Americans. And then you see something interesting happen. 2008, 2009, 2010, Democrats are up around 85%. Proud to be Americans, right? And then they crater in 2016. What happens?
Trump goes
the
into
4
office.
years of Trump, they crater. Okay, they're down at 30, about 40%. Proud to be Americans. What happens in 2021? Joe Biden is elected president, goes right back up again. Now, they don't get super high. They're just, in general, between the two parties, Republicans definitely tend to be more proud to be American than Democrat are right now. But the Democrats go back up with Joe Biden. And then Donald Trump elected again, and then all the way down to 36%.
It's unbelievable.
Okay,
it really is, and so it really depends on who's the president.
Yeah, there's no question, right?
Like it has nothing to do with our American history or us as a country. It has everything to do with who's in office.
Well, it doesn't, right? But I would think the way they look at it, it's different like that. So let's go ahead and show the next graph here, Ava. So here is again just the Democrats on the list here, and that's where you can tell that real kind of rock and roll situation that for the most part has been on the downward trend, and obviously with 8 years of President Trump or 2 different elections where President Trump won, it deeply affected how they look at this country. Okay, and what I would argue is it is two different things. So Republicans look at this country, our broader mission as a country and being a force for good in the world, that I think God put us in this position, right? And we have a real responsibility as a country to be a force for good in the world. That's one thing. That's are you proud to be an American to me?
Right.
Then there's right track, wrong track. Is the country going in the right direction? That's two different things. So let's look at that number and those numbers right now. So what you're looking at here is
like an echocardiogram.
It's a little bit, but what it is it's right direction, wrong track. Okay. Now this number used to be 70-30, 80-20 wrong track a couple of years ago when inflation was sky high and we were struggling in a lot of different areas. Now the numbers are a little closer. So right direction, 43%. Wrong track, 53%. Okay, that delta actually in recent history is not that bad, actually. It's actually a pretty good number. But this is one thing. Are things, is the leadership doing what you want the leadership to do? That's what this number is, right? And I think that's what Republicans, fit into that mold a little easier. Republicans are like right track, wrong track, right direction. That's day to day. Do I like what the president's doing? Do I like where the political parties are taking us? Right? Mm-hmm. That's that one. But then there's that broader sense, am I proud to be an American? And so that's where things are different. Now, if you go by age and are you proud to be an American, this is where things are really, really
this is
scary.
Super interesting. I was looking at this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, just the things that stood out to me is you're looking at, generational. Are you proud or not? You go back to the silent or the greatest generation. It's, still the Republican side is still really strong on this, but still the strongest side of being proud to be American is that silent or greatest generation at 77% for Democrats. Baby boomers, 67 of Democrats versus 93% of Republicans that are boomers are proud to be American.
Yep.
Gen X, which is us, 56% of Democrats, and then a whopping 92%. So we're pretty high. We're as high as the baby boomers on the Republican side as far as Gen X.
Yes, it's Republicans are consistent across the board, really.
Yeah, really. But I look at Gen Z, and I look at that because it's our kids' age, right?
Right.
You only got 24% of Gen Z on Democrats that are proud. You've got independents about half, and then the Republicans, those that consider themselves Republicans, pretty high for Gen Z, which is 66%.
Well, I would argue that's pretty low, and that's pretty scary to me.
It's scary, but they're also just starting. And honestly, to me, I think that's high because here's why. I know this is the old world, the theory of you start out as a Democrat until you start paying your own taxes, and then you slowly turn to be more conservative because you want your more money.
Yeah,
right?
If you're not a Democrat when you're 20, you have no heart. If you're not a Republican when you're 50, you have no brain.
Right.
That's the old.
Right.
Whether it's whatever.
So obviously Gen Z right now, they're all very young. So I just think at 60, we got 66 or 65% of the young generation that are more conservative in that. I think that's kind of impressive.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I just think as a general rule, you can't be a party based on the fact that you live in a crap country.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying? That's so if I'm looking at this, Ava, can you put it back up, please? If I'm looking at this, right, and you see it and you say, okay, 77% of the silent generation is Democrats believe that we're basically, you're proud to be an American. Then you go all the way down. Really what this is an example of is pounding people with the message that you live in a country that is a nightmare, and the structure of your country is patently unfair, and it is something you should be ashamed of, not proud of. When in fact, you live in a country that's given more, I think, for the most part, more opportunity to people from across the spectrum on where they come from or what their religious beliefs are, if they have any religious beliefs at all. This country has provided more opportunity than any other country in the world. And so I think Republicans largely believe that, and Democrats don't. And the problem is, or at least the current iteration as things go, and I think it's incumbent upon a Democrat at some point to walk up and say, you live in a great country. You can disagree with your political opponents, but it doesn't mean your country's terrible.
Right.
And I think as long as your approach is, this is a terrible country, that's a tough sell. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, you shrink your party because of it. And I think especially when you're an oppositional party alone to the person in the White House. So if your whole thing is, I hate the guy in the White House, your party shrinks. We saw it with Republicans and Barack Obama. When all Republicans could say was, Obama's awful. That's not a plan. That's not a political party. That's an oppositional push that doesn't attract anyone to you unless the conditions deeply deteriorate and then you get more people in, whatever. But if things roll along for Trump and all the opposition is Trump's a terrible guy, Trump's awful, that's terrible, it doesn't work. It does not work. And saying, look, we're part of a terrible country that has been incredibly unfair to people along the way. Look, we're not a perfect country. There's no question, right? But at the same time, a lot more has gone right in this country. And we've been a force largely for good in this world versus a force for evil.
And listen, we're getting ready to celebrate our 249th birthday next year, 250th birthday for
next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
For a democracy, that's pretty long.
It is.
And it's impressive. And I think that we've come great strides. I think, like you said, there's things that we obviously can still improve upon. But at the same, I mean, holy cow, why does everybody in the world want to come to America? Because we're the greatest country in the world. It's not because, for our Starbucks. I mean, it's not because of things like that. It's because we offer the most for people here. And I just think, come on. When all you can do is find problems or have an attitude towards it, either you're not grasping where we've come from and what is going on in the rest of the world as a comparison, your bubble's too small, or you just think, I guess I can't align with that way of thinking.
Or you're honestly, you don't have a real great grasp of hardship in a lot of cases, or what really does matter. So, and again, some of that's our age as much as anything else. We say that about all sorts of, kids that we're dealing with. Like, you guys only understood. We've said it to our own kids a million times.
Right. But I think you and I registered as Republicans at the age of 18.
Right.
We came out of the Reagan generation. I don't think I've ever not been proud of our country.
I agree.
Literally, not ever.
And so, and I will say, I do think though, and what you're seeing now is with everything that's happened with Iran and these other areas, because you have a lot of Republicans who stand up and say, well, we need to withdraw from the world. We don't need to be involved in any. And I understand the forever wars thing. I get that. But America does have to be involved around the world. We do need to have a role. And we can be a force for good in so many different ways. So I don't like to hear when Republicans are like, let's just withdraw from that. To me, that isolationist right, I think it's damaging. Just like I always believed it was damaging when it came from the left. And so I do think we have to have a role. Now, it doesn't mean you get involved in wars and you got boots on the ground and all this other stuff. But when you provide the moral clarity in the world, I think that boosts the feelings of your populace, whether they be young or old. They say, wait a minute, we do make a difference. We do matter. And I think that's important. And I think that's really important for a president to stand up and not apologize for who America is, but stand up, make good decisions, and make sure that America continues to be a force that makes this a better world and not one that makes this either we either get into a bunch of stuff we shouldn't be involved in, or we're just deciding that we're going to completely withdraw and let the world just kind of spin out of control, because that's not how it works. The world's not just going to spin out of control and leave America alone. By the way,
right?
They're coming. So for whatever that means,
right? Exactly. So, okay. Well, so the big beautiful bill, it is passed out of the Senate.
Yes.
Now it returns back to the House. You seem to think that you seem to think that this will all get taken care of by Friday.
Yeah.
I do not think it will. I think there's going to be enough back and forth. It's going to get thrown back to the Senate. There's going to be changes made in the House.
No.
Okay, that's my thinking. I could be wrong, but I just think we're still a couple of weeks out from this thing actually getting across the finish line. That's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. Okay. And no. So, I'm just kidding.
You can just discount my thinking.
No. You may be right. I think that the House is going to end up adopting what the Senate did, and
with no changes.
Well, no, they've had changes. So they voted on it once, and then it's going back from the Senate.
But you're saying that you think that the House is going to take it back, and they're not going to make any more changes to this. That's what
roughly, yeah. I think effectively that's what's going to happen. So now, but there are two main lines of criticism that have come up along this front, especially from the left, where they've said, okay, look, you can't cut Medicaid and you're going to cut rural hospitals. Okay. And so I want to go through a couple of clips from CNN where Scott Jennings was on the front lines of this thing and pushing back against Casey Hunt. And I think he does a good job here And this is going to be fascinating. So I want to get through a couple of these clips, and then I'll explain why I think the timing on this thing is critical and why it is going to end up being passed here very quickly. And they're going to have a signing ceremony within the next few days, because I think they're trying to accomplish one key thing. But let's start with some of the criticism of people like Josh Hawley, who said, hey, I do not want to cut Medicaid, and he ended up voting for it. Okay. And we'll explain what the Medicaid cuts are. Like, what is it? Everybody says, wait a minute, why would you ever cut Medicaid? Scott Jennings explains why you would cut Medicaid. And it's very important to listen to why.
I have to say, Scott, him saying I'm not going to vote for Medicaid cuts, and then he voted for this bill, which very clearly does cut Medicaid.
Yeah, but who does it cut Medicaid for? Illegal aliens, people who won't get off grandma's couch despite being able-bodied adults.
Right, but hang on.
It is a protection of the social safety
I actually
net.
know too much about this because I used to be a healthcare policy reporter on Capitol Hill.
Oh, my gosh.
So putting that hat on for a second, the
Please
people that
do.
are really going to suffer, and the reason this is a problem for Lisa Murkowski and Josh Hawley, are the rural hospitals with emergency rooms into which people like that may walk. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have Medicaid, they're not getting that hospital is not getting any money from that person or from the federal government.
Well, the Senate included a massive fund for rural hospitals. I think, was it $50 billion, or do they wind up, I forget where they wound up, but a massive fund to cover just what you're talking about. So some care was put into thinking about how do you protect rural hospitals from downside outcomes. So I think that's one of the reasons they're ultimately going to get it over the line, is because they actually work to fix little individual pieces that had people upset about it.
Okay. So we'll get to more of this in a second, but effectively what he says is, when people say Medicaid being cut, what they're really talking about here is adding a work requirement in, okay, which we'll explain here in just a second.
Which, by the way, was added by Bill Clinton back in the 90s.
Right. So that was something that Bill Clinton backed up. And by the way, Paul Begala, who you're about to hear from on CNN, was Clinton's main guy on this, was where they said, hey, yeah, if you're able to work, you should work. Mm-hmm. That's what it says.
Right.
And people that are here illegally do not get to get Medicaid as they are right now. They have to get right with the system before they could take advantage of Medicaid. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and then the rural hospitals. So I'll get to the rural hospitals in a second, but Paul Begala believes, this is the Democratic strategist, he's like, this is catastrophe for Republicans if they pass this.
If you're a Republican, Congress, you lie awake at night, unable to sleep, worried that somewhere, someone who's a working person is getting health care. This will be the biggest cut in Medicaid in American history. Medicaid is very popular. By the way, Republicans carried people on Medicaid. They won their votes. And this is what gets me. Smart politicians reward people who vote for them. Great politicians reach out to people who didn't vote for them and bring them in. But stupid politicians punish their voters. This bill is a political suicide note for the Republican Party. Last time they tried this, the Democrats won 41 House seats after Trump's first midterm. They'll exceed that this time. 489 days. They'll do better than 41 seats. This is absolute death knell for the House Republicans. Maybe Senate, too.
I should have started my remarks by thanking you, because it was President Bill Clinton in the 90s that thought of work requirements for Medicaid.
But two-thirds of people on Medicaid already work.
Which is all we're doing here.
They already do it. They already do it. We did it.
If you want to get up and go to work, you're going to get your Medicaid. And if you're an illegal alien, you're not going to get your Medicaid. Everybody else is going to be fine.
14 million
generational
people.
welfare reform built on your all's ideas. So I thank you. I sincerely
One-third of the people in Kentucky, which I love. I'm a Kentucky colonel. You're a Kentucky citizen, but I'm a colonel in Kentucky.
I'm also a colonel.
I love your Commonwealth. Love it. 1/3 of the people in that Commonwealth are on Medicaid. 54% in Eastern Kentucky. 54%. And they stand in line in the rain to vote for Donald Trump, and he's stabbing them in the back.
I disagree.
It's a fact.
The people
Kaiser Family Foundation.
The people who work, the people who are trying, the people who need it, the people who are taking care of kids and other family members, those people are protected. We're protecting the safety net from those who are gaming the system or shouldn't even be in the country legally at all.
All right, well, let's turn to
So interesting stuff. So this is the debate.
Right.
And we always talk about the easiest, cleanest argument in politics usually wins. So the Democrats right now are saying you're cutting Medicaid, because technically it's true. You are going to cut out some Medicaid spending that's fraudulent. So, and you should do that as a government.
Right.
You have to be able to stop fraudulent spending. Okay, so the argument back and forth. So it's an easier argument if you're on the left for this. And so, but here's what's interesting. Back when Trump passed in 2017, the Trump tax cuts, those big tax cuts, which ended up being very good for the economy.
Right.
Okay. They ended up passing those tax cuts less than a year, only 10 months before the midterm elections. So what happened was they passed the tax cuts. There wasn't enough time in there for the economy to jump up like it did from those tax cuts, and they were hugely beneficial. We've talked about this a million times on this show. Those tax cuts were some of the very best tax cuts at helping low-income and middle-income people advance higher along the economic scale. It's undeniable when you go back and look at the numbers. 82% of people in the United States of America got a significant tax cut, and it helped them. Okay, right. So that's why they're going to be permanent. This bill makes them permanent.
Right, and I think that's the thing that we make sure people understand is that's the reason this thing is being pushed so fast is because of those permanent tax cuts. That's the whole goal originally of this bill.
Right.
Now, a lot of things have been added in it. But that was the biggest like benchmark or deadline. It's like, hey, let's make those cuts across the board for everybody, not just for the super rich, which is what the Democrats want you to believe, but for everybody, and then make those tax cuts permanent. Right.
And so, and your point's well taken, right? So you want that stuff there permanently. But look at the date. Look at the date right now. We're getting close to July 4th, 2025. That is roughly 18 months before the midterm elections. The reason they are pushing so hard is because they learned the lesson in 2017. They passed the bill too close to the midterm elections, so you could not see the benefit. But now they're pushing it out further. They know they push those tax cuts permanently. They do things like no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. All of a sudden, you see the economy gain more momentum, and that's why Republicans are going to do this now. Okay, they have to. They know it. But here's the bet they're making, and this is what's going to be so important. When you listen to people that are the opponents of this bill, they speak in catastrophic terms. SNAP benefits from needy children are going to go away. Medicaid is going to go away. Rural hospitals are going to close. We're going to find out. And if all those things start to happen, Paul Begala will be right. The Republicans will get destroyed in the midterm elections. If those things don't happen, which, spoiler alert, they're not going to, and when they don't, all of a sudden, all the screaming about what's going to happen, none of it will end up happening, and it will look like they were the boy who cried wolf.
Right. Well, and speaking of somebody who's crying wolf, let's just take a little gander at one of our own from the state of New Mexico, Teresa Ledger Fernandez, just talking about how catastrophic this whole bill is, and she's going to go set it straight.
Yeah, and by the way, she did this, I think, on late Tuesday.
Yeah, she's going to go in and set it all straight. So let's take a listen to what she's going to do.
The Republicans over there in the Senate just passed that big betrayal of a bill, and it is uglier. It got uglier from the Senate, from the House version, if you can only imagine that. You know what? It steals health care coverage from everybody you know, unless you're friends with a bunch of billionaires and millionaires, because it cuts Medicare for seniors, it throws people out of Medicaid coverage, closes our rural hospitals. If you are a woman, don't think about getting reproductive health care from a Planned Parenthood or even from your own private insurance. And guess what? For those of you who are on the Affordable Care Act, it is going to increase your premiums in some places by 500%. So nobody is safe under this bill. I'm on my way to rules. We are going to fight it hour after hour after hour because we want to see if any Republicans on the House side have the courage to stand up for their constituents. I want you to stay tuned because the fight is on. We are not giving up, and we will remember where people stand.
Okay, thank you so much. Wow. Let's see how much impact she has on the legislation, right? Let's just see how impactful she is, because you brought in this fantastic story that I think I didn't even know about. So I want you to actually explain it a little bit more. But we have a representative coming in from Alaska.
Senator,
right?
Yeah.
Who came in from Alaska, who was kind of opposed to this bill too. But she wasn't just like, I'm going to be opposed to this, right? She actually started thinking smartly about.
Yeah, and I think this gets back to our point where we have a lot of times talked about our criticism of the representation in Congress that we have in New Mexico is, where they're voting, you don't even have to ask. You know the 5 votes from the state of New Mexico, 3 in the House and 2 in the Senate. You know where they're voting every time. They are absolute hyper-partisan politicians. So you never have to wonder where their vote's going. You never have to wonder if they're going to say, you know what, my state, I can't do this to the people of my state. They won't do that. They'll do whatever they need to do to vote along party lines. You just never have to wonder. Now, we've had some great New Mexico leaders who you did have to wonder, and they would cross the aisle. They would work with other people. They would say, no, I'm not doing this. You had the Pete Domenicis of the world and the Jeff Bingamans of the world and the Heather Wilsons and the Joe Ski. Like, you had some really good, even the Bill Richardsons of the world. You didn't always know. Okay, no, it doesn't mean they're not with their party. You couldn't say that about, of course, Domenici was a strong Republican. Of course, Bingaman was a strong Democrat. You're not saying that. That's fine. But you had people that would be willing to cross over to do things for their state. Okay, and we don't have that. Our 5 representatives, 3 in the House, 2 in the Senate, are absolutely banked votes, and they never matter. They never matter. There's never a reach out to Senator Heinrich to see if you can get his support on something that maybe other members of his party wouldn't support. It just never happens.
No.
Okay, so you bring up Lisa Murkowski. She is the senator from Alaska. Now, Lisa Murkowski is not a hardcore Republican, okay? She is further left than me. There's no question about that. She's further left than you. Okay, we there are definitely a bunch of issues where we don't agree with Lisa Murkowski, but she is a Republican. And her sensibilities do tend to lie with Republicans many times. Not always. She frustrates people. Don't get me wrong. She frustrates people on her own side. But I want you to read a little bit about what she did with this bill. So she was the swing vote in the bill, because you had Rand Paul, who said he's not voting for this. Okay, you had Tom Tillis, who said he's not voting for this. Again, those two said too much spending, need more cuts, we're not doing it. Okay, so fine, they go away. And then you had Susan Collins. She also kind of an independent-minded senator from Maine, and she said, I'm not voting for it. Okay, so now you're 50-50. Okay, if you lose Murkowski, you're done. JD can't come save the world, right?
Yeah,
okay, so listen to how this shakes out with Lisa Murkowski.
Okay, at 3 a.m. Tuesday, with President Trump's sprawling domestic policy bill in trouble on the Senate floor, no one had more leverage than Senator Lisa Murkowski, with 2 GOP senators firmly opposed and Senator Susan Collins, a Republican from Maine, likely to vote no. The senior senator from Alaska was the pivotal vote for Trump's legislative agenda. Murkowski, a patient and often inscrutable moderate Republican, was dead set on amending the bill to benefit her constituents and softening the blow from spending cuts in the package. So let's look what she actually asked for. By 5 a.m., so 2 hours later, Medicaid officials were on the phone with staffers representing Alaska's other and more conservative Republican Senator, Dan Sullivan, to iron out rural hospital provisions that would help Murkowski get to a yes. Senate Majority Leader John Thune could have chosen to shrink the bill's debt ceiling increase to sway Rand Paul, the Republican from Kentucky, or adjust the Medicaid provisions to woo Senator Tom Tillis, the Republican from North Carolina, and Collins. But instead, he gave more to Alaska, and it worked. And what does that mean? It means that they ended up adding $25 billion more for rural hospitals, which will actually end up benefiting New Mexico.
Right. It's a $50 billion fund now.
Right.
So what that says is, if rural hospitals serve people that aren't able to pay them effectively, you're going to have more funds available from the federal government to backstop those hospitals.
So when you hear Teresa,
they're closing all the hospitals.
Teresa Fernandez Ledger, or Ledger Fernandez,
yep,
saying, oh, well, they're going to cut all of our rural hospital funding. No, they're not. They actually just added the bill in. So again, that was added yesterday. She made that video on Tuesday.
Right. Yeah, it's not the most honest criticism in the world, but at the same time, that's in the political world, that's what they do, right? They do those things. But the reason I bring up Murkowski in this particular case is, what does she do? She looks at the people of her state and says, okay, I know what I've got to do here. I know we need to pass these tax cuts. I know that if I don't pass them, taxes are going up on every Alaskan. Right. I cannot have that. Like, that's a bigger deal than any of this. She knows that. So she knows she's got to get to yes. She knows she does. And so she's like, but I got to make sure that Medicaid is in a position in those small rural hospitals, because Alaska's like New Mexico. They have 1 million little rural hospitals. Right. Not 1 million, but a lot, right? Mm-hmm. That are really isolated. And you have to care for people in those hospitals. So she knows it. So she uses her position to help the people of her state. I think that's a huge deal. And she isn't saying, I'm a Republican, so I'm going to vote Republican. She ended up doing that, but not before she got something for the people of her state.
Right.
We don't ever see that from the people in this state. We don't ever see them say, Hell no, I'm not going to sell out the people of my state to support my party. I don't care about my party. I care about the people of my state. Where is that?
Yeah,
we don't see
why
it.
were they not creative even as a five-some to get together and say, okay, listen, this thing's going to pass. We know it's going to pass. What is it in this that we really need to make sure we're protecting for the people of New Mexico? They didn't do that.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, they're just.
They didn't
it's
do
not a
that.
factor.
They're just gonna vote no, and then their vote, as you said, isn't even gonna matter.
Yeah,
like that's what's so. It's just
no, it never does.
It never
does.
Okay, but all of this to say, Trump has never been more popular than he is right now, which I think is interesting with Republicans.
With Republicans, yeah,
right, with his own party.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, yeah.
So let's just take a look at this. This is the latest polling, basically talking about his first 5 months in office and how does he compare to previous presidents at about the same time in their presidency.
I mean, every politician would like this number here, especially to see it go up. How about compared to other presidents who were Republicans?
Yeah, it's history making. It's history making. What are we talking about here? So why don't we look back? We have all the presidents.
Oh, sorry. One quick thing, Abe. Just a quick pause on this. What these numbers are, just so you know, we probably should say that. Strongly support. So these are the hardcore, like he's doing great.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's what that it isn't approval. It's hey, look, this is strongly approve. So that's a hardcore number. So you would look at that and be like, oh, only 63% of Republicans approve of Trump. No. These are 63% say, I really approve of what he's doing. That's a huge number. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Last 35, 36, 37 years. What are we talking about? GOP who strongly approved 5 months in. Look at this. George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, 46%. Bush 43, 59. You see Trump, the first term, 53. But look at this. 63%. He beats all the other Republicans on the board here. And I was looking even back since Reagan. And get this, Donald Trump beats Ronald Reagan when it comes to the strongly approved 5 months. And of course, Reagan was coming off that high after that assassination attempt. So the bottom line is Donald Trump is making history with the Republican base. He is more beloved by this Republican base than any Republican base loved any GOP president.
Okay, so why does this matter? This matters because when you go to the United States Senate and you start twisting arms, when you are in the kind of position that Trump is with his own party, and he says, everybody loves me, do what I'm asking you. I know it's going to be tough, and I know you're getting a lot of blowback because any political fight like this, there's a ton of blowback. You're not going to get a perfect bill, but you're going to get a bill that's going to improve the lives of Americans. Do what I need you to do. This is why they fall in line. This is why he got just enough votes to get it done. And believe me, if he didn't get Murkowski, he'd have gotten Collins. And if he didn't get Collins, he'd have gotten Tillis. Whatever it was, he got who he needed. And the same thing's going to happen in the House. And it's going to happen over the next couple of days. And they're going to get this through. Because when you have a president who's got a 63% strong approval in his own party, he has tremendous power.
Interesting enough. Okay. Well, and then obviously this also kind of molds into the primary. And like when Trump backs you in a Republican primary, is there a shot for the other guys, right? Like if you have a Trump-endorsed candidate in the Republican primary, should you just bow out at that point if you don't have his stamp of approval on you? According to this recent poll, probably so, apparently. So take a look at this.
Donald Trump. The times Trump endorsees won the GOP primary for governor and congressional races. Look at this. 2024, 96%. 2022, 95%. 2020, 98%. The bottom line is this. 95% plus of the time, the Trump-endorsed candidate wins in GOP primaries. And even in the cases where Donald Trump endorses a challenger to an incumbent, the majority of the time, that challenger wins. So Donald Trump is a winner in Republican primaries. You go against Donald Trump, to quote the movie Good Burger, you go in the grinder. Donald Trump is the key nugget. His endorsement is the key nugget in a GOP primary because he's historically strongly popular with the GOP.
Okay. So, but we should add, I mean, I think it's important for a state like New Mexico that, yes, his endorsement in a GOP primary is important, but it can also be a ding for that same person in a general.
Yeah, maybe.
Right?
Yeah. It depends on the state, of course. But this is about arm twisting on a bill that's in front of them right now, knowing that Trump comes out and says, I'm going to get you primaried. If he's going to do that, that's a real threat, and it means something, is what Harry Hinton's basically saying. So you should be scared of that. Now, we will tell you a little background story, and we've talked about this before on this show. When we were running for governor in 2022, Rebecca Dow was pushing super hard to get Trump's endorsement. Now, I will say this about Trump and some of those numbers. When Trump doesn't think you're going to win, or it doesn't look like you will win, he doesn't endorse you. So that's why those numbers look really good too. Right? So it's both. It's the
and he usually comes in pretty late. Usually. Well,
not always. There are plenty of people he'll endorse nice and early, but it just depends on the situation and if you want his endorsement and how it all works. But Dow was pushing super hard for him and we started to think, oh my gosh. And we knew we were up. We knew we were winning significantly. And so when we heard Dow was pushing hard for this, we reached out to the Trump people and said, okay, if you're going to do this, just realize we sent them our polling numbers. And we said, if you're going to do this, you're going to have an uphill fight, and there's a good chance you're going to lose. So don't do this. And so we pushed a lot of information their way. And now, were we right? Would Dow have made up all the ground on us and made up 40 points and beat us? Probably not, but I don't know. It would have been a whole heck of a lot closer. The second she got that endorsement, our lead goes from 40 points down to at most 15, right? So that's close. So we treated that very seriously. And so that just gives you an insight into candidates know that you do not want to step on that Trump rake, right? And you don't want it hitting you right in the forehead. Right. And so that stuff is important. And so you got to be careful. So we ended up talking to Trump's people enough that they said, okay, we'll stay out.
Yeah, they just stayed out of it completely.
Right, and that gets back to Trump's success level of 96, 97, 98%. Some of it is that his help matters. It absolutely matters. It does help. But at the same time too, he's smart enough to know, okay, I'm not going to go fight a battle that I may lose. Right. When it's really close like that, sometimes he'll stay out of the race like he did with us in the primary in the governor's race in 2022.
Right. Yeah. Okay, interesting enough. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this.
Yes.
CNN. I don't know what this is.
Oh, okay. I added it in at the last second.
You added it in like 20 seconds ago.
No. So I just wanted to say, finally putting a bow on some of the over-the-top criticisms, right? And over-the-top criticisms, especially from media or from other politicians, people just roll their eyes. And I just wanted to give you a little example. We've talked about USAID and the fact that they're taking the funding from USAID and pulling some of it back that was inappropriate. And then the stuff that was needed is being reapportioned in different ways through the State Department. Okay, that's what's happening with it. And so now CNN got a hold of a new study that's out, and they want everyone to know that there is death on the horizon.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio is hailing the end of USAID, the nation's largest foreign aid agency, even as a new analysis finds that its closure could contribute to some 14 million deaths in the next 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
14 million deaths? Wow. Who knew? Who knew that NGOs were saving that many lives?
And so look, and again, there's plenty of aid that we give out to other countries that we're going to continue to give out to other countries that desperately need it.
The actual NGOs that are making a difference is who continues to get the money.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, it just cracked me up. So anyway, I just had to stick it in there.
I'm going to start throwing things in here that you don't have a chance to read it.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it.
And then I'm just going to start throwing things, and then I'm going to have you read it. You looked at me and you went like this. And I was like, I don't know what this is, sir.
Well,
so welcome to producing.
I just wanted to give you a little laugh. So
okay, that was good. All right. So basically, just real recently, UPenn now apologizing and basically saying, hey, we're going to pull away all of Leah Thomas's wins, basically, or rankings.
Yep. It's women in women's sports again from Penn. And basically, this comes down to the Trump administration pressuring the University of Pennsylvania and saying, you can't do this. And so what they agreed to do, what Pennsylvania agreed to do was contact the athletes that were affected at the time and apologize to them for what they did. And remember, there are swimmers at the University of Pennsylvania who were on the team at the time who said administration came in and threatened them and said, if you don't keep your mouth shut, things are not going to go well for you. Mm-hmm. I mean, they were strong-armed. And there have been women who have come out and said, this was awful what happened to us. And these are people on the Penn team and said this was not right. And so when you look at the records from that particular time that Thomas said, those are being wiped away. When you look at the titles, those are being wiped away. And so Penn has definitely pivoted on this whole thing. And I think you've got people like Riley Gaines who are saying amen, people that were on the University of Pennsylvania team at the time saying, thank goodness we get our sport back. And it's amazing because this has changed quite a bit, obviously, since we were talking about it a few years ago, and leadership in this case mattered.
I know. And I mean, honestly, Riley Gaines was one of our very first guests on the show. So, I mean, this has been a long way, a long haul to try to get this back to some sort of sense of normalcy. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what shakes out from this, but taking away certain medals from certain swimmers that now they're saying, listen, we're going to correct this wrong, basically.
Yeah, and one of the swimmers from the University of Pennsylvania said, the thing nobody talks about is there were girls on our team who had to sit out that just couldn't compete.
Right.
Because Thomas competed.
Right.
So this is something that I think, obviously, more and more people are, and again, this has always been an 80-20 issue. So I think more and more people are waking up to the 80.
I think it's a 90-10 issue now. I really do. I think it's shifting. I think it's less and less people are saying that this is a normal way of living. But okay, well, let's end the show with something kind of fun to talk about. Because it's the, 4th of July. A lot of people like to go to the movies with their families, and it's exciting. And so Mark very rarely, by the way, just for those, very rarely will go with me to the actual movie theater to see a movie. And this is one that you wanted to see. Yeah. And I was like, oh, Brad Pitt's in it? Oh, I guess pull my arm, I'll go, right?
I know.
Drag me kicking
I had
and
to
screaming.
I had to BP in there.
Yeah. So it is called F1. It is about Formula One racing. And even if you do not give 2 cents about Formula One racing, like me, I knew nothing about it. It is shot so incredibly well. And it is like, I don't know how they did it. I don't know if they really had racing cars with like GoPros on them or what, but it looked like you were behind the wheel of those cars. And it's an incredible story. It's Jerry Bruckheimer. He always does kind of good action-packed 4th of July blockbuster movies. Yep. And this one will not disappoint you. I thought it was so good.
And usually I don't pay any attention to music in a movie. The music in this movie is such an excellent addition to what happens in the movie. Storyline is good. Brad Pitt is great.
Gerard or Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem is tremendous.
He was great in it.
He was
as
great.
Well.
The engineer, the girl's the engineer. This woman who's the engineer on the car, she was great. The other driver was great. The acting was excellent.
Mm-hmm. It was well
this whole
cast.
Thing was really, really good.
It's funny that you talked about the music, because the music, I said the same, like when the music was playing, it's definitely not even like our style of music at all. But it fit the scenes of the movie so well that I think I was wondering, like, I don't know enough about movie making, but I was like, is the sound guy the same guy as the music guy? I don't think it is.
No, so the guy who did the music for F1 was Hans Zimmer.
Oh, he's a legend.
He did the music for Top Gun Maverick. He did Prince of Egypt. He did Interstellar. He did all these movies.
Well, Bruckheimer did Top Gun Maverick too.
Yeah.
So this movie
Hans
feels
Zimmer
like
makes
that.
Incredible music. He wins Oscars for his music.
That's a great point.
It's so good. The songs that they chose.
Dropping the Hans Zimmer.
I love him.
Dropping in some
Hans Zimmer. Plus, he was in Frozen too. Hans Zimmer. Oh, that's a different
Prince
one.
Hans.
Oh, that's Prince Hans. Sorry,
who's an animated fictional character.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Well, if you are looking for a show, maybe Frozen, maybe if you haven't seen Frozen yet, with the Prince Hans, or you can go see Hans Zimmer musical.
That was a joke. You didn't understand
my gosh.
that. That's called great humor, guy. That's how it works.
But as soon as you said the music had to be really good, I knew it had to be Hans.
Oh, it was.
Well,
I knew it had to be Prince Hans.
I'm sure there's songs. I'm sure there are songs on on that movie that people actually know. By the way, that you and I are just not culturally.
No, I thought there was some really good. I kind of thought at the end, I would like to go back and listen to these, because there are a couple.
Oh, you're going to have them on your running list. I already know you.
Could see
you're going to be like, I'm downloading these guys.
It was, and the storyline was really good.
Yeah, I would see it again.
God, it was so good. Long though. It's a long movie.
It's 2.5 hours. I would rarely say that there's a movie I'd see twice in the theater. Like A Quiet Place was one that I wanted to see right away again. I loved that one.
Yep, good movie.
And this one, I would go back tomorrow if you want some action, some fun. It was just really a good upbeat movie, and it was awesome.
Yes.
So go see F1.
Yeah.
You guys have a great 4th of July. Whatever you're doing.
Yeah, enjoy the 4th.
Enjoy the 4th. We will actually not be back on Sunday because we're going to enjoy the 4th ourselves.
Right, we'll be back Monday, I think.
But we'll come back on Monday. So you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you for joining and spending some time with us. God bless you, and God bless America.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.